series. We're very happy to have you here, and we're really excited to have Dr. Rao presenting today on his research. But just by way of a reminder, we do have our planned retreat upcoming in a few months, and you'll be getting some more information about that. But I'll turn over things to Dr. Agarwal to do the introduction of today's speaker.
Thanks, Jamie. So it's my pleasure in broken voice with cough and all that to introduce you, good friend and colleague, Professor Rao. He is endowed chair in the Department of Medicine and Hem-Onc at University of Oklahoma Cancer Center, the director of the Prevention and Development Program, and also the co-leader, just like contemporary to me and Jamie, for Cancer Prevention Control Program. Dr. Rao is somebody who has contributed enormously in the nutritional carcinogenesis and chemo prevention research. Lot of dietary manipulation and a lot of microbiome we talk in GI today. I mean, he did a lot of work and very early on in 90s, I guess, at American Health Foundation in New York. He is highly respected chemo prevention scientist in the GI cancer models, especially colorectal and pancreas. Over 250 publications. He serves all over in different study sections. Was a member of the chemo dietary prevention study section for 6 years. So we are very lucky to have Dr. Rao here. And without taking any more time from his schedule, he will share his work on obesity and colorectal cancer and how he has targeted a lot of those pathways mechanistically in the chemo prevention. So Dr. Rao, take it away.
Thank you, Rajesh. Also, thank you, Jamie, for the invitation to give a seminar on the monthly seminar series at your place. Although it is my wish to come personally, but it's not worked out because of the COVID still travel restrictions. But anyway, what I will do next 45 minutes or so, I will go into talk one of the topic, obesity related colorectal cancer and some of the mechanistic things to how to target this, particularly obesity relevance one. So obesity, we all know like it is a major problem, but typically what we call the obesity, basically you overeat, you cannot burn enough calories, and it will accumulate as a fat. So people with over BMI, body mass index 30 or greater, we call the obese people, or the overweight people. But that is in the most of the US, that will be the phenomena. But if you go to some countries, there is a different body mass index. Some people in Japan, if you go and look, maybe it's less than 30 also will be obese, according to their classification. So here is the recent last year chart. Always intrigue me why Colorado is least obese obesity in all the states. It is surprising. Still, I do not know. Somebody has to educate me why it is so. We are other way around. We are the neighboring states actually with the Colorado. Basically, we are the top 5 or the top 4 in the states as a high obesity state. So obesity will be linked to many diseases as shown here. Not only the cardiovascular diseases, you call it any major disease, it fall under the obesity. And then go to the little bit about the historically, obesity is much more studied within the context of kidney relevant diseases, those affecting the hypertension and so on and so forth. But mechanistically, if you are looking, there is a component, the high obese also contribute to the inflammation and the oxidative stress. Those are very much linked with the tumor promotion. So what is the link between the colorectal cancer and the overweight or obesity? If you take the meta-analysis, what I have shown here, number of studies. Actually, you can see here very clearly, except 1 or 2 studies, predominantly almost all the studies suggesting that it will increase the risk, almost 2 to 3-fold, depending on the study population. So when looking into the colorectal cancer risk, it is not just obesity, but it is so many other factors, the genetic factors, though it is in a lesser extent, like maybe 10 to 15% at best. In that, strictly speaking, only 5% are the somatic relevant genetic predisposition, like a FAP and HNPCC cases. The remaining, like when you talk about the diet and obesity, those are falls under nearly close to 70 to 80%. And predominantly those are the sporadic colorectal cancers. So what is the present status of the colorectal cancer? Just like in the United States, it is also the major one in the worldwide, the second most mortality, not only in the US, including in the worldwide. Recent Globogan data suggest. And what is the projected next coming years? If you look into the data by 2040, it is almost doubling. Even US, it is going to increase almost like a 40 to 50% level. That is a serious health problem, looking how the colorectal cancer incidence and mortalities are going. So particularly coming to the colorectal cancer in Oklahoma, why I brought up this thing is we are all doing the cancer prevention control, looking the healthcare disparities and so many. That's why a few days back, when I'm looking at US obesity data, Colorado is the least. And also I'm looking at our disparity data on the colorectal cancer. And here in the bar chart, our incidence, this is what the green shows the total US all races. This is our Native American population. As many of you know, Oklahoma has the highest number of American Indian population. And we have also a reasonably good number of African Americans. Both the cases, they are the higher in the disparity of incidence. Not only that, mortality also higher in the both. We looked into some of the colorectal screening, yes, somewhat less, but not as usually not that high. That's why we have taken a significant effort to study further these populations. Those are the higher disparities into their genomic and gene and other biological factors, what it is contributing to the higher incidence. And also the same way in the mortality. Because of the time, I do not want to go, just highlighting. And also I've shown this red mark. That is what the Colorado incidence rates. You guys are doing much greater than us. So I said like a colorectal cancer is a major problem. When looking into the colorectal etiology and the risk, it is a highly preventable disease. But unfortunately, more than 50% of the population age of 60, they predisposed to the colonic polyps. Some of them are easily removable with the colonoscopy. Some of them, sessile polyps is difficult. But whoever end into the metastatic colorectal cancer, their survival is very poor. It is very modest, like a 5% or something. And the recurrence is very, very high in even the post surgical removal of the colonic tumors. So as coming, it is what we call it is a multifactorial disease. The colorectal cancer is not a single factor. If you take it, it is an integration of a lot of the things, your diet, your gut microbes, and what it is the interaction between the diet and the microbes into the metabolic metabolically what it will form, and certain extent the environmental factors, those cause the genetic mutations, those kind of things. So in this presentation, I will highlight two of the things. One is the prostaglandin E2, and the other one is it is a cytokine interleukin 23. Those are somewhat connected with this whatever the adipose tissue metabolism. Whenever the white fat is very high, there is a significant systemic inflammation release of this prostaglandin E2, which is one of the well-known tumor promoter, particularly for the colonic tumors. The another thing is the intratumoral inflammation, that is everybody knows that within the tumor microenvironment, infiltration of lot of the immune cells. Those are pro-tumorigenic, which will abolish the anti-tumorigenic immune cells. So that is the way it is the progression of tumor growth will take place. So historically, PGE2 is extensively studied as immunology wise. So here I have shown a picture how differently it will form and how many effects it will be there. Predominantly in the tumors, it derived from the cyclooxygenase 2 and also some of the melanine-derived cells. Basically, it will block some of the cytotoxic immune cells like a CTLs, that is CD4 and CD8, and the NK cells. In our perspective, we looked interface of gut microbes and their toxins like LPA and LTA, LPS. Then typically what will happen within the tumor, polarized macrophages, that is the M2 macrophages, activation will lead to the high levels of PGE2. PGE2 directly or indirectly will influence on the dendritic cells to produce more IL23, that in turn will modify the tumor immune system. In that one of the main process, it will significantly convert the CD8 cytotoxic cells into Tregs. So when the Tregs are high, killing ability to the tumor cells will be weak, and tumor progression will be very high. In that context, some of my colleagues at the MD Anderson and other places, they have shown that the PGE2, how it will stimulate not only colonic tumor cells, it also stimulates the colonic stem cells. They did the elegant experiments, taking the LGR5 mice organoids. Those are the stem cell markers. If you give the PGE2, it will induce the formation of the organoid growth. That has proven, like specifically in the proliferation rates and also induction of the neuroendocrine, that is BCLK1, those kind of things. There is a conclusive evidence is there. But in our perspective, several years back, we tested if really the Tregs are increasing, does really it will promote the tumor growth. Here what I have shown in the experimental animals is the RAG1 knockout mice, which will be deficient of the T cells and the NK cells. So in that one, we crossbreed with the APC mice. Then by adaptive transfer, we have given either Tregs or the NK cells. Whenever we have given the Tregs, it significantly promoted the intestinal polyps formation, almost to double to tripling when you give the Tregs. So even though in these studies we quantified, I have not showing the PGE2 levels and those things, significantly high when the Treg given those tumors. Not only the tumors which has given the Tregs, not only in the size wise, volume wise, they are significantly bigger compared to in the absence of the Tregs. As I said, like in the colorectal cancer prevention, it is always important what actually you're targeting, what is your target population. So in the journal primary prevention, okay, we all know like a diet, lifestyle, etiological factors are the major contributors. One can tell like, okay, if you use a proper diet, we can manage the risk reduction. But in the typically chemo prevention, and that is what we call the secondary prevention, already once you develop the polyp or the pre-polyp stages, how to intervene, that is by targeting specifically what is the lesion specific expressions and those things. Here what I have shown with the relevance to the diet, particularly the fat. You know, like a fat have a different things, not generally total fat always we talk, but within the fat content, we say like a omega-6 fatty acids. Those rich diets, that is what we get access to. Corn oil, soybean oil, and so on and so forth will release ultimately this arachidonic acid that will be metabolized further to eicosanoids. From there where this PGE2 will come. So that is the reason, like if you targeting, yes, if you replace with the other omega diets, so probably you can reduce the PGE2 levels. That is the one of the known mechanism. The another mechanism is all we know, like aspirin to number of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agents. If we give that target the COX-1, COX-2 and reduce the PGE2, that's the way you have enormous data is there inhibiting the colonic tumor growth. Many years back, more than 20 years back, we published this work along with my mentor, Bandar Reddy, where we have shown like whenever we talk about the high fat, not going to the details. Here, the long back we have shown types and amount of the fat will make a big difference on the cancer risk. Using a colorectal cancer model, well-established model, AOM-induced rat model. In this study, we have given a low-fat diet, corn oil diet, that is the omega-6, or a mixed lipid diet, the typically Western style diet, what we call the high saturated fat and high omega-6 fatty acid diet. Or we given a equivalent high fat, but omega-3, that is the fish oil derived diet. Or the high corn oil diet, just omega-6 high diet with the lesser saturated fat. Here the outcome of the results shows after 1 year exposure to these diets. Yes, as anticipated, low-fat corn oil diet have a lower risk. And whereas the high-fat diet, that is the Western style diet, you have almost 4-fold higher risk of the colon adenocarcinoma formation. As compared to the high-fat, same equivalent amount, but omega-3 rich diet, that have almost like a 3.4-fold less reduction compared to the same amount of fat, but different omega-3. Whereas the 20% omega-6 corn oil diet, the fat content was, yes, it is a higher risk, much lesser higher risk than the saturated fat diet. This clearly illustrates on the mechanistic way what we explained, like a PGE2, which is coming from omega-6, is contributing really to the risk. And still today, not that many studies highlighting why the saturated fat, mechanistically, saturated fat is the much more riskier than the omega-6. So little bit shifting the gears, I talk in the literature, yes, we have a lot of information on the PGE2. We have so many years targeting either synthetic molecules like aspirin to new NSAIDs, all these things on how to block the PGE2. Then I want to make one point on the PGE2 and obesity. In that context, there is a contradictory reports. Some studies says like it will be positively correlated with the PGE2 versus the obesity induction. In some studies, actually, it is the PGE2 receptors, selective receptor like a EP3 receptor knockdown. Actually, it will work oppositely. So there is a lot of different opinions or different outcomes depending on the experiments. Whereas I got interested a little bit on the IL23, based on some of the publications which came in the last decade, which shows like a IL23 actually regulate the obesity. When you knock out the IL23, mice given the high-fat diet does not get obese, and it will significantly alter the gut bacteria. Then some other studies came like how it differentially it will influence the colon tumor growth if you knock down the IL23. That is the downstream or the upstream of the IL23 based pathways, not directly IL23. So then we put a schematic, this thing, diet, whatever the prebiotic or probiotics, gut microbes, yes, along with the diet, plays the critical role in the obesity that will lead to the colonic inflammation. Then that will increase the colonic cancer risk. Then the question is whether you knock out or reduce the IL-23, whether it is going to decrease the colon cancer risk. So here is the data from the human standpoint of view. In the right side of the column B and C, first we look into the TCGA database, how much it is involved in the colonic tumors, this IL-23 expression-wise and the disease survival-wise. It is very clear, very strong indication that people have the higher expression have a low survival rates. If you go and look into the tissue data analysis, the colonic tumors of human origin having the very high levels of IL-23 production. Then we ask the first question is whether the obesity people really have this incremental increase of IL-23 in the systemic manner. Then we obtain the tissues, serum tissues with the BMI less than 30, BMI 30 to 40, then BMI 40 and above, where we have shown like this IL-23 serum levels are about 165 to 170 as an average in the BMI 30 or less. Whereas the same obese people, 30 to 40 range, you will have over double the amount of the IL-23 in the circulating serum levels. We found very few samples of BMI with the 40 and above, where we have seen again doubling the amount of the IL-23. So it is highly correlative with the obesity and IL-23 levels. And put together these things, the human standpoint of view clearly shown, yes, IL-23 plays the major role in the colon cancer risk. So we want to do a systematic studies going back to the animal model studies along with the human studies, taking the human colonic tumors, analyzing the expression by Western blot. As you see here, like almost black and white. Normal mucosa, you doesn't have anything. Human tumors, very high expression levels. Whereas in the same thing, reproducible results in the rat colonic tumors, which is induced by AYM, or in the FAP mimic model, that is the APC-min model, also similar results. As compared to the IL-23 ligand levels, very high expression, but we have not seen much different on the IL-23 receptor level. That clearly indicate like IL-23 is the one which will be the major regulator. So that is proven in our immunohistochemistry analysis. Here is the normal mucosa. Here is the colonic tumors. Is the side-by-side normal and the tumor tissue. Very high expression in the tumors. This confirms both the human and animal model studies authenticating the IL-3 association with the colonic tumors and the risk, and a correlation with the obesity. So we analyzed further within the patient population, people, non-obese colorectal cancer patients versus the obese colorectal cancer patients. This is also from, again, the TCGA database analysis, where we found this relative IL-3 expression within the colorectal cancer patients. The obese people have a higher levels. That clearly indicates obesity is the significant promoter, and which also significantly increasing the mortality, and that's the way it is a decrease in the survival. As a mechanistic angle, we ask the question like, okay, within this population, so IL-23 secretion is correlated with what kind of immune cells. This is what he has shown, this melanoma-derived or dendritic cells. So this is the from the patient population, the same data we have taken and correlated with the DC cells, whether it will increase or decrease. They clearly IL-23 increase and their association with the dendritic cells. To further authenticate, we have proven in the rat colon model by staining the DC, co-staining for the IL-23 expression. It is very clear that wherever the DC cells are accumulated, there is a high release of the IL-23, and also showing some levels of the tumor cell intake of the IL-23. So we further went on to question like IL-23. Basically, we want to know like since not only dendritic cells, even macrophages also release some levels of the IL-23, and also PGE2, which is strongly released from the macrophages, also contribute to the DC cell induction of the IL-23. To link this pathway, we did some systematic steps where we took the THP cells, those are monocytes. If you treat with the interleukin and plus the MA, it will be induced to dendritic cells. And also one can induce with the macrophages with that. With that, what we did, like we used the simply two things. One is the dietary derived, what I said, like arachidonic acid and releasing the PGE2, and the bacterial well-established LTA and LPS. One is the gram-positive cell wall toxin, another is the gram-negative cell wall toxin, how it will influence on the IL-23. Here, as I shown, whenever we treat these cells, either macrophages or dendritic cells, with arachidonic acid or PGE2, they are significantly induced the IL-23 production. Same way with the gut microbial toxins. Same thing we did both the dendritic cells and the macrophages. We got more or less similar results. Then we went on and questioning like what is the other functions of IL-23 on higher levels, what it is doing. We use the two different cell lines of colon, CACO2, HCT116. We have shown one is the proliferation indicator, like a cyclin D1. If you treat a increasing concentration of recombinant IL-23, basically it will increasing the proliferation rate marker, cyclin D1, and also it is decreasing the cell adhesion markers like claudins, those things. Then some of the stem relevant and other factors. Then we looked into how it will be on the overall growth level. Even the markers are induced, how the growth looks. Again, in the lower part of the we have shown, if you treat with the IL-23, either CACO2 cell, HCT cell, they induce significantly the organoid formation, growth of the tumor cells as a clumps. Then this is the quantitative analysis, where the IL-23 increased concentration up to 40 nanograms, a dose-dependent manner increasing the organoid growth. And further, what we did it, taking into the same PGE2 and LTA and LPS, does it really, it will increase the growth? Again, we tested the similar manner, where we have shown like, again, when you combine the AA to PGE2 and LTA and all these factors is significantly stimulating the CACO2 and HCT116 cells growth. We try to do it in a way like a co-culture experiment, since directly it might have some stimulatory effect we have seen in the previous studies. As we cultured with either dendritic cells or the macrophages, these colon tumor cells, as shown here, you can see very significantly stimulated organoid growth. What it indicates here is the each unit value which equivalent to 1 organoid. Like here you can see in the PGE2 about 40 organoids as compared to 10 organoids without any treatment. Similarly for the HCT116. So we went and asked the another question: does the IL23 is the major factor in inducing the growth? Then what we did, like we silenced the IL23, then we used the PGE2, arachidonic acid, and the bacterial toxins. All this data put together, it is clearly indicate that in the presence of IL23, that is in the scramble, there is a significant growth increase. Whereas when you silence the IL23, that growth is significantly dropped down, no further increase. Some increase we have seen independently PGE2. That's why I said like a previous studies also shows PGE2 alone also will increase. But in the presence of IL23, what you see is comparing here is a highly several fold increase in the growth. So that's the way it is implicated the overall role of IL23 connecting to the all the way to obesity and to the colorectal cancer risk, both taking step by step the in vitro studies. Then we pose the question, what about the in vivo studies? Just to we finalizing the manuscript on this area. We take the IL23 knocked out mice, then we crossbreed with the APC min mouse, which will develop the intestinal polyps. We looked at the outcomes of after 20 weeks, what is the outcomes of this IL23 with the APC background versus the APC alone. Here is the top panel showing the tumor polyps. Is the colonic polyps. This is the APC mice with the wild type IL23. Here is the heterozygous. Here is the complete knockout. The complete knockout, both male and female, you can see greater than 95% of the polyp formation inhibition, reduction. Very, very clear in the colonic polyp level. When you go to even small intestinal polyp level, it's not like a 90 or greater, but what we have seen about somewhere 50 or 55% inhibition of the small intestinal polyps. This might explain some level because the release of the gut microbial IL23 predominantly take place in the lower part of the gut, that is in the colon, rather than the small intestine. Some correlation, some studies, in-depth studies also going on. So all put together, what is for the cancer prevention, these results, understanding the disease is the one side and the other side of the thing is the how to move practically if you want to build for the human. So we took the some of the anti-obesity drugs, does it will going to influence the colorectal cancer risk? So what we did, like previously we did one of the compound from the fenugreek compound. It is called the disogenin. It has shown the clearly inhibition of colorectal cancer. Then we also followed up with the recently carried studies, the Celestral. It is an anti-obesity molecule. Proven studies are there. So in that, what we did, like taking this one, we did in the APC min model, which developed a lot of small intestinal tumors. what we have given a single dose, that is 150 milligrams per kg diet. Then at 6 weeks of age given and at 17 weeks, we analyzed. For the comparison, we put the high fat diet, then the high fat diet cholesterol, then the low fat diet to comparison. So here you can see the body weights. Here is the high fat diet, and this is the low fat diet, that is anticipated little bit less weight. Whereas the high fat diet fed cholesterol actually suppressed quite a bit of the body weight gain. That is also true in the female mice. Then we went to look on the intestinal polyformation. Here you can see this is the cholesterol diet versus this is the high fat diet, regular high fat diet. This is the high fat cholesterol. This is the low fat diet. So we almost seen like a close to 90-95% suppression of the intestinal polyps, even including the polyp size wise also. Then we looked, given the significant body weight loss from this compound, that is induced any toxicity, typical parameters from the liver enzyme profiles. Those are listed, shown here in the graph. ALT and AST and cholesterol levels, those are not significantly altered between the group treatments. Only one thing what we observed interestingly is the cholesterol treated, that anti-obesity drug treated one. There is a significant decrease of triglycerides as compared to high fat diet or the low fat diet groups. Not only that, what we observed in the cholesterol treated one, we have seen not only the grade of the polyp formation, classified histologically either low grade or high grade adenomas. In the cholesterol treated one, a significantly lower number of the high grade adenomas are what we observed. Not only the number, the progression also very low in the cholesterol treated. Then we collected some of the fecal samples for analysis of any alterations in the microbial flora. I have shown here that is the 16S RNA analysis. After analysis, what we found in the high fat control diet versus the high fat control diet plus cholesterol, there is a significant difference, alteration of the gut microbes. In the journal, in the high fat cholesterol diet, high fat cholesterol diet, there is a significant decrease of the inflammatory associated bacterial levels, and at the same time, significantly increase in the beneficial microbes that like bifidobacterium, Akromesia, and so on and so forth. We went on collecting the tumors and see whether the gene expression profiles, whether altered, if altered, what kind of alteration are there. I'm not going to discuss a whole lot, just to take 2 points. One is the CXCL9. It is a chemotactic which will enhance the infiltration of the T cells, particularly CD8 cytotoxic C cells into the tumor microenvironment, which is significantly upregulated. Then UCP1, but what interestingly is, which are downregulated genes, particularly what we have noticed is the IL23 is significantly downregulated. So yes, there is some link that expression analysis clearly showing that IL23 play a significant role. So I'll put together all this data. So high fat diet induce the obesity that will significantly alter the lumen microenvironment, that leading to the release of the PGE2, IL23 that promote the colon tumor growth. So as I shown, this anti-obesity drug or the IL23 knockouts clearly indicate like a good potential for the future for the cancer prevention, particularly on the obesity people. To summarize, again, obesity is a high risk for many cancers, including colorectal cancer. Along with the PGE2, IL23 play an important role both in obesity and the poor survival of CRC patients. As I said, like it is uniformly, we have shown both the human colonic tumors, rat and mice, and the in vitro studies, IL23 play a significant role in the tumor promotion. And it is linked with the gut microbial toxins, which are enhancing this IL23. And further, we have shown IL23 knockout studies and anti-obesity drugs. Not say like a drugs, it is a phytochemical agent. So it is one is the fenugreek. Many years back we worked that is routinely used in the Indian Ayurvedic medicine or as a vegetable Indian kitchen. So significant promise on the prevention side of the thing. With that, I want to thank you, my colleagues, particularly Janani. She has the one did a lot of this IL23 work, IL23 knockout work, Dr. Mandka, the many of my associates over there, the contribution and the NCI funding. With that, I am very happy to take the questions. I think I am in time.
Yes, you are in time always. Thank you very much. This is really very thought-provoking to target IL23 for obesity-associated colorectal cancer. Questions for CV? Well, I can start with one. You know, very early on, you saw a slide that maximum cases are in China, even more than US. Is that right?
Yes, right now, you know, Rajesh, we used to go long back to China, maybe about 15 years back, when we are looking like probably it is far less than the US incidence rates. It is strikingly unbelievable what it has happened last 15 years.
Yes. Yeah.
It is the single most factor. It is skyrocketing just like crazy. I never seen data like I look on the global data.
Right.
Every year, like at least 100 to 200,000 new cases, incidence cases are adding. No other cancer is like that.
Any idea the reason behind it? Any age related?
More than the age, it is the one of the big factor. People working in the population science and all these things, we know like a human economic index, wherever the country is going high, there is highly linked to that thing. Maybe within that it is built all these luxurious diets and obesity factors, so many are there. And also still we know like smoking is the highly prevalent. The number one, and also this whatever the China got rich last 2-3 decades time, affordability, access to the this luxurious high calorie diets are very high. That not alone, already everybody carries some risk, but whatever we are seeing, it will pop up like it take a lesion is there, it will to progress to a cancer 10 to 15 years of time. That what we are seeing, it is a very, very high incidence rates. And also their colorectal cancer screening also gone up. Before that, we don't have that much of the scenario. The same thing for India and a few other countries.
So as I understand that overall people in China are very poor. There's a handful of population which is this. So is there anything where you can dissect it out based on the socioeconomic level of these cancer survivors for colorectal cancer in China. That may have a role, which you said about the food and high food diet and all those kind of things. But overall, I don't think it's the same. And same thing for India also. I mean, we have most people are not that rich to afford those fancy and unhealthy food to eat on a regular basis, right?
I don't know, like this changed maybe 35 years back when we came here, there is a different society there. If you go to the metropolitan cities, in Hyderabad or in New Delhi or something, the frequency of the people going to the restaurant, what food they are eating right now, it's significantly changed. The way the family, the kids nowadays, maybe in the olden days, we are more people in the family, but now there are 1 or 2 kids, they have access to all kind of things. I particularly won't say like that is the only thing. Even I said the one of the slide here, why Colorado is doing much better than the Oklahoma when come to the obesity, and why our Oklahoma cancer health death rates, particularly colorectal cancer, is so much different. There are a lot of there, and it's not only just I won't say like alone the diet, high calories and those things, but there are some behavioral patterns and those kind of things also.
Okay, other questions for Dr. Rao? Anybody?
Yes, I have a few questions.
Please,
Hi, I'm Linda Cook.
And
And I'm thank you for that talk. That was very, very interesting. That was a lot of work packed into 45 minutes. I have several questions for you, so maybe I'll just ask one at a time so I don't confuse you. It seemed to me that in some of your data from TCGA and some of the other places that really you kind of saw more of an effect in men or male rats than in the females. So what do you think is going on there? Why do you think you see more of an effect in the males of both species?
okay, the number one, it is a very excellent question. Often people, when they talk this kind of presentation, they won't go by the gender-based separating. My understanding, Linda, is right now is the difference is about 20 to 30% higher incidence and mortality in the male compared to female.
It is higher, yes.
Yeah, about 25, 30 years back, it probably about 10%, my understanding. So something is going on, but what we learned from the animal experiments, particularly if you take a male rat and female rat, you treat equivalent dose of the carcinogen. Both develop the same number of pre-neoplastic lesions. That is what we call the aberrant cryptococci, microadenomas. Both develop equal number. Okay. But when they progress, male progress into the tumors, at least probably 3 times, 4 times higher than the females. So there is definitely this estrogen receptor or female hormones. We give the same diet, but these things significantly alter the progression rate. This is very striking for the colon. It is very striking for the liver. I can see in some experiments, we did it many years back. In the males, you can get 100% tumors. Females, none. Same dose, same exposure. So there is a whole lot to do with in the female, the protective effect of the estrogen and the other factors.
Yeah, the hormones. Very interesting. Very interesting. My second question is, so you looked at one of the anti-obesity drugs that have been developed, but there's actually a slew of them, at least that people are working on. Would you expect all of them to have this kind of effect, or do you think it's very, very specific to this drug? Because those are pretty dramatic results.
Yeah, and we are also not anticipated. But probably we have given a little bit higher side of the dose, what I'm thinking here. But again, results are results. We have to reconfirm and go further with the other relevant models. Same, like not only just APC mean, we have to see some of the sporadic model system, how it will work. Those kind of a thing. And I don't want to classify because these are the natural products or natural phytochemicals. What I'm talking, the disogenin, that is come from the fenugreek.
Right.
The another one is like it is a Thundergard wine, like it is a Chinese medicine they used. Somehow that linked 1 or 2 studies proved like okay, you give this one, we are reducing the body weight gain in the animals. I have not seen the whole data in the human standpoint of view. One has to go and see like, because these are not that frequently used. If you take a turmeric or something, people constantly use those things, but these are not that much widely used. Probably fenugreek in India, it is a vegetable people take in large quantities. So actually some studies are there to reduce like a bowel movement and other kind of things. So that's probably helping to reduce the body weight gain or something.
Thank you. And then my last question is, so given these really, substantial results that you saw, are you planning a chemo prevention trial? And if you haven't, really kind of started that yet, what's missing? What's the pieces that you need before you can do a full-scale chemo prevention trial?
One has to do stepwise, and also it needs more than me. Like within the cancer center, say wherever we have to coordinate with the clinical trials group. And more than that, we have to get approval from the NCI funding or resource generation towards the clinical trials. That is in the pipeline, but again, it may take a little bit longer time.
Yeah.
Probably, I don't want to comment, but this is what the NCI also looking into more closely, because many of you understand, like many years back, when the SELECT trial and the big trials, when they get failure, people in the NCI to support any clinical trials and the big clinical trials in the chemo prevention, they are not taking the risk. Our budgets are 2 million, you go and carry the clinical trial if peer review panel approves. That is, maybe it is going to change in the coming years, the way I am hearing, but I do not know. Probably some of them, yes, it is feasible. Dr. Rajesh Agarwal in your place conducted some of them on his own compounds, which are in the chemo prevention for the liver toxicity and other things. Selbinin and those kind of things. We earlier did on turmeric and other things with the partnership with the other sectors.
So, I think that because of the time, we have to wrap it up, this discussion, but this whole research work you presented, most of it supported by the Prevent Program of the NCI, is that right?
Yes, most of it is Prevent Program.
So I just want to tell those who are in this, presentation of Dr. Rao, that Dr. Rao is one of the major contractor or central contractor for a lot of preclinical chemo prevention research done by NCI. So if NCI want to do any of those kind of research, there are 2-3 places in the country. He has one of them where he goes as a contractor, and then I could be a subcontractor for a project, but overall umbrella lies with Dr. Rao. And he has a system where his preclinical work can go to the clinical trial. And we are part of that network through the Northwestern, where we just moved to the clinical trial in the patient populations. There's a system in place, but obviously there's a lot of in-between gaps which need to be filled before preclinical research can go to the clinical trial. But NCI has a system to make those things happen in a channel-wise manner. So,
Yeah, there are two major programs. One is the preclinical one, like what we run here, and we can subcontract out to the other centers, including Rajesh and other people. Basically, if you have an idea or thought like you have to write a 5-page concept and send it to the NCI Prevent Program, they will review. If you go to the NCI DCP Prevent Cancer, then you will see this whole information. Then that is reviewed by just like you and me, peer review panel people.
I'm in that panel. So
he is also on that panel. And those, if it's ranked well, it will be taken by NCI Management Review Board. They see like a logistics, it is feasible, any changes is needed. Then they talk to you. If it is coming from you, then they will say like, okay, let's go ahead and issue as an, they separate the money, how much it is needed. Then generally it will come to us as a prime contractors. Then we say like, okay, this is X is written by Linda, so that we have to contact them so that, okay, can you able to do it, the studies in our place. Then if it is successful in this program, there is a CP net, Cancer Prevention Net. That is what Rajesh is mentioning. That is the entirely dedicated to phase 1, phase 2 clinical trials.
Yep.
We also partner with the other centers. So if whatever we see here, exciting data or something, we channelize to them, then they will take up from there.
Okay, CV, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
I really appreciate that you spent an hour with us, and we're all thinking that you will be here in person, but maybe next time. So again, thank you very much, and thanks for all the people who attended this exciting work. And I'm really intrigued by this IL23, and I'll just follow with you separately on that. Thank you, CV.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rao.
Thank you, Jim.
Bye now.